Hey y'all, this is Tamika, the face behind Hey HR, and today we're going to talk all about the differences or similarities, or we're just going to do a little compare and contrast of the HR specialist position and the human resources analyst. So if you want to know more about the human resources analyst and the human resources specialist, then you definitely want to keep on watching. So the biggest difference about the human resources specialist and the human resources analyst is that your human resources specialist works on a specific part of HR or a specific task that may be repetitive over and over again. A lot of times you'll hear them referred to as the benefits specialist, the payroll specialist, the onboarding specialist, because they're constantly doing benefits over and over again, payroll over and over again, or onboarding over and over again. Now your HR analyst is a little bit different. They're going to work on all of the data and analytics and creating metrics and measuring those metrics and pretty much telling the story of that data throughout the human resources department and perhaps the entire organization as it relates to human resources. They're those folks who are not only really comfortable with knowing how to use Excel, knowing how to create pivot tables, bar charts, pie charts, they're also going to be those ones who know how to extract that data. How do I create that data? So am I pulling this from the human resources information system? Am I creating a way to track this? Am I using surveys? Am I using another system to make it kind of pretty, like perhaps Power BI? They're primarily going to make that data make sense. Instead of you just seeing a whole bunch of names, numbers, and titles or what have you, they're going to make it visually acceptable or easily to read, like pretty data. And they're going to probably track that over time. And they really report into more of your strategic approach of your organization or maintaining costs. Now, your human resources specialist is a position that can easily be pulled into another part of human resources or even perhaps finance, operations. They are someone that would typically be looked to be that person that's kind of cross-trained, that can help in other areas, that can support other areas, and that perhaps pivot into other areas if it's full-time or temporarily. Now, your human resources analyst is a bit different. They're going to build the metrics, build this data, and then they're going to not only report it to whomever needs to know this information, but they're also going to provide the basis for your gap and your SWOT analysis. So whenever you're trying to determine what are your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of a situation, or what is a difference between where we are and where we can be, they're building the story for that. Now, that's a lot different from your human resources specialist who's literally just trying to complete that task at the time. What do we need at the moment? Let's get it done. Your analyst is going to constantly build this information over time, and this information is going to be used for a strategic approach. But your specialist is really supporting the day-to-day duties and the day-to-day necessities of the human resources department. Now, just like I said that the typical job titles for a human resources specialist is going to be like your benefits specialist, your payroll specialist, your onboarding specialist, the general titles for an analyst could be like your compensation analyst, your human resources information analyst. It could also be your payroll analyst. It could be your benefits analyst. They can work on specific data or they can work on the entire department. Compensation analyst is going to work on making sure that there's pay equity within the organization, that our pay is meeting what the metrics are for the market, like other companies that may be competing for the same talent, or that we're keeping up with cost of living, that type of thing. And when you talk about your human resources information systems analyst, then that's your person who's going to constantly make sure that the data that we pull from the human resources information system is being portrayed in a way that's easily readable for its audience. Now, if you guys want to know the compensation, because normally I would have already gotten to the compensation by now, but for the human resources specialist, they typically get paid a lot lower than your human resources analyst. And if you want to know all of the details of what it takes to be a human resources specialist, what that compensation is like, what the range is like, then you definitely want to check out the human resources specialist video that's completely dedicated to the human resources specialist position. And so I'll definitely leave that link below so that you can check it out as soon as you're done with this video. Now, the compensation for your human resources analyst is going to be higher. And so the average salary in the US for a compensation or human resources analyst, let's not say compensation, but your human resources analyst is going to be a $61,244,000 as your annual minimum, up to $83,249,000 as your annual maximum, and that information was brought from Glassdoor. This position isn't being paid more just because you're gathering data. Typically for a human resources analyst position, it requires additional certifications. So that's outside of your SHRM or your HRCI certification. Typically they want, like, particularly for your compensation, there are different compensation certifications that you would get. There are different levels that you would get. There are different ones that you get for a specific industry. Typically, because it kind of requires additional education, it requires knowing a whole lot more, it requires being able to forecast, a lot of strategic thought, it's paid a lot more than a specialist who has a redundant day-to-day duty. So now we can see that there's a difference between a human resources specialist and a human resources analyst. Very, very big difference. As you continue to create your human resources career, it's going to be important to know which direction you want to go in. Honestly, you can be a human resources specialist and go to any part of the human resources department. But for a human resources analyst, it's going to take a lot more learning to get comfortable in that position. Even if you were to leave from one position and go directly into that position, your learning curve is going to be a lot harder than it would be for a human resources specialist. So I hope that you guys found this video helpful. For those of you who are new, I hope that this is something where you found your internet home and you consider subscribing, because more and more videos are going to come out where it's just dropping gems for y'all, okay? And you do not want to miss it. So perhaps you want to even set those alerts. For those of you who are returning, I really appreciate you catching on to every video, supporting this channel, and continuing to watch each video that comes out. I know that for everyone that's watching this video, I literally cannot wait to see y'all on the next video.